Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Healing Conversations. My name is Einav Avni from Untangled Healing, Untangled Coaching. A little bit about myself: I call myself a pain free living guide, and I mainly work with people with chronic pain, chronic illnesses to help them heal or reduce the ailments, reduce the pains by really introducing the psycho emotional element of whatever is causing them to feel the way that they are. This podcast is all about people that have a message, a story, a passion. And today with us in the studio, Nimisha Mehta. Nimisha, hi, lovely to have you here.
Hi, how are you? I'm so happy to be here as well. Thank you.
Wonderful. So I'm really curious to learn about you a little bit. Tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you. Thank you, first of all, for this opportunity to be on this podcast and sharing this energy with you. I'm truly grateful. And my name is Nimisha Mehta, and a I call myself a self-image empowerment coach. And what that means to me is what you see in the mirror is your image, but what you feel inside of you is really your self-image. And so I help my clients see themselves as whatever ideal image they have in their mind that they'd like to reach. And we've all got an ideal image in our mind that some of us feel that is not reachable and it's just a dream, but it is reachable. And so that's what I help a lot of people with. So I feel my calling.
And that's incredible. I mean, first of all, I just want to say that you're right. The self image, we hear about it a lot that, you know, someone in cyber, what is it? Cybernetics. I always get the book name, the name of the book wrong, but he was saying that you can never outlive your self image,
Yeah.
and this is the point, right? That sometimes we want something so much, but there is something that is holding us back. So unless we change how we see ourselves, only when we change the way that we see ourselves, we can actually move forward and succeed in life. So, but tell me, how did you end up in this calling, in this kind of area?
For me, it started with the fact that I had not a very clear self-image of myself. I had a lot of healing to do, a lot of trauma to deal with that was forming the self-image that I had of myself at that time. And I'm not going to say it was just years of conditioning and years of me putting on myself all of the expectation of what everyone else wanted me to be or look like. And I had accepted that. I had completely accepted that and walked that path for years. Not until did I turn 40 I realized that that was not what my self image really looked like in my head, or my ideal self image looked like in my head. And so that led me to sort of like a spiritual awakening of sorts, where I truly did feel that I didn't like that version of myself anymore. I wasn't empowered. I didn't have any agency over my own decisions. I had left all of that to someone else. And I just felt not in power. So that was a really low feeling for me. And there was a lot of therapy that I did go through as well with the trauma and stuff. So it wasn't just coaching that I went through, it was therapy, and then I moved on to coaching. And once I moved on to coaching was when I had decided that this was going to be something that I would love to help other people with, because it was so transformational for me. It was absolutely, in every way, shape, or form that you can think of. Physically, I had transformed, meaning the way I dress, the way I behave, the way I walk has changed. So these are transformations that you can see, but you can also see how my confidence has risen, how I'm able to very easily put my point across and be sure, be convinced that I'm right. So the people pleaser or the apologetic me had to find a way out of my system. So I helped myself with that, especially the people pleasing part, because that was just ingrained. And for anyone that's out there that may be going through people pleasing traits that they have and trying to figure out how do I not do this in my life, it's possible to not do it. There's a practice that's required, but it's absolutely possible to not be a people pleaser. I will say it does come back because it's years of doing it. And so to break that pattern takes time. So I'm not going to say it's an overnight journey, but so it's a journey that you want to go through and be committed to for, I feel, lifelong.
Yeah, and you're saying a few things that actually are quite remarkable. I guess the first thing is that really learning to recognize what is not working for you
Yeah.
before you are able to then change it. And then once you've made this decision, is actually how do you go about changing it? Because the change is, I think that's where so many people get stuck.
Yeah.
And more specifically in your example of people pleasing, it's exactly that. It's you all the time, right? In every new scenario you want to go back to your default, the thing that you've been going through your whole life. And yet here you are telling us that actually you can do things differently. You don't have to follow these things, that the conditioning and what you've always been doing, as it wasn't working for you.
Yes, it absolutely is. It takes a bit of work though. It cannot be us thinking that we, for example, if you've learned ways to deal with something and like a trigger of some sort, and you've learned a way to manage that, that doesn't mean that it's not going to come back in another form. So it's going to come
Yeah,
back in many forms. And also, I feel that a lot of other things, there are a lot of other factors that include you going back into that default, as you said, because stress, we never understand that stress or anger or not having eaten that day or being on your period can bring out that old default self back, because like you had said, it's just so comfortable to go back because it's been years that you've been practicing that form of um, reaction. So you will face these things in your life where you're not feeling great one day and you default to that mode. It's okay. It's okay. It's, like I said, a lifelong process.
yeah. And so tell me, how do you help people recognize that the thing that is really holding them back is really the self-image? What does that conversation look like?
It's funny because most people that I know, myself included, actually don't realize it is the self image. We feel, for example, if I was to ask someone what they're looking for in their life, they will say something like, I'm looking for a great relationship because I don't have one, or I'm looking for money, or I'm looking for a great job. Whatever it is they tell, or I'm looking for more confidence in my life, whatever it is that they, or I'm looking to be more beautiful, whatever it is that they say, each and every one of those things is usually connected to the self image, because you are the one that can change how you feel about anything in your life. And say, for example, it's relationship related. If you don't have any boundaries, if you are a people pleaser, if you tend to do things from the mindset of where your conditioning came from, where your trauma came from, if you haven't healed that, then the relationship really is, what do you contribute to it? Once you heal from your trauma, once you're able to set boundaries, once you're able to see yourself as there are certain standards that you hold and you want to keep going that way, you will start realizing that the relationships that no that just don't match that frequency will fall away, and you won't regret that. I tell a lot of people that, you know, you will, this is, and I don't mean it in a mean or like a practical way in any way, shape, or form. I understand that emotions are very, very important. I'm a very, very sensitive human being myself, so I understand the sensitivity of how relationships can be important in our life. But I always say to people that your feelings for them will fade, but their disrespect for you may not. And you're living with that forever if you choose to have that relationship in your life for that many years. So when you start realizing that you are an important person in the world and you are the most important person in your world, that's when things start changing. But unfortunately, the way we've all grown up, none of us actually feel important in our own lives.
Yeah. But I think it's I come across it in my coaching, with
Yeah.
people, and just yesterday I had a conversation with someone where her belief of not being good enough was so strong. It was like this was definitely the lens through which she was looking at her life.
Yeah.
And yet, of course, I could look at her and see how incredible she is and how talented and how she's going. She's on a journey, but she's on a journey that she will 100% get where she wants.
Yeah.
And yet, I can't. Obviously, I can't convince her. She has to do this. So this is what it's really interesting for me because yes, like you're saying, if you believe that you're not going to have a good relationship or that you are not good enough or that you know you no one has good relationships, this is exactly the reality that we are creating for ourselves. So I am curious about the conversation that we are then having to how to move away from that self-image.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it, that I'm not good enough umbrella holds so much of our other beliefs as well. That's the big umbrella, and under it, there are so many little ones. And
Yes.
sometimes it's sometimes it's very simple, like somebody, you know, um, just somebody, let's say that it's a people pleasing trait that somebody has, and that in itself comes from the fact that you don't feel that you're good enough, and you want to impress somebody so they like you because you're not likable otherwise. That's the belief, is that please like me. I'll do anything for you to like me because
Yeah.
I don't like myself. And then there are people who feel so just turned off by the genuine, as you were saying, you could genuinely see this lady was incredible, but she couldn't see that. And I bet you if you said that to her, she would just look at you like, you're maybe lying to her, because that's the thing, is that we don't actually see ourselves that way, and when someone else does it, it just seems so alien, like they don't recognize the fact that that's actually the truth, and
Yeah.
that what they believe is actually a lie. Because again, I'm not good enough comes from childhood. It comes from you feeling not good enough for, number one, it's usually the primary caregivers, and then it moves on to other people in your life, and it's something that is such a deep rooted feeling that you really do have to have that faith in yourself, that if someone actually comes up to you and says you are not good enough, you are able to say, for you maybe.
I think it's it is interesting. I think it's more. I mean, for me, it feels like it's because it's not good enough is an identity level belief, right? I'm
Yeah.
not good enough. I will not be convinced. Or I mean, sometimes it takes more than just to try and convince me that I am good enough. Sometimes I walk with my clients and I say, well, tell me an example in your life where you do feel good enough. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, when you're able to start breaking some of these beliefs, they can say, actually, it's not this one umbrella. It's not one size fits all.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's really about understanding that it's a lot about the ego, because if I already have that conversation that I'm doing, people pleasing, or I'm in a rubbish relationship and I don't know how to get out of it, or how to, how to bring a different one along, or all of these things, I need to shift my whole way of how I'm looking at things to say, actually, what is good enough? Good enough means I'm in control. I know what good enough means. And actually, when I let go of that ego statement of I am good enough or not good enough, and I just allow things to just be as they are, all of a sudden I can start having different relationship with things and people than I had before, or that I could ever imagine that how it would be.
That's so true. I completely agree. Is that what you said is to accept, and even ourselves, when we are able to accept. I'll talk about beauty because that's one thing that, I mean, you can change your face if you went through another route, but I mean, traditionally, you cannot really change your face or your body or, your structure.
Mm,
And I just feel that when you are able to work your way through coaching to a point where you feel that you have accepted and embraced the person that you are, all the qualities that you bring to the table, all of your features that you love, you start to work on the confidence of the person that you are in the present moment. You
mm,
don't think of the past you because, of course, we can't hold ourselves accountable or responsible for things that we didn't know. When you know better, you're not going to do what you already did before.
yeah.
So I just feel that people that feel we are not good enough just goes back to reframing the thought process, and to, as you had said, to realize, what do you have right now? Are you able to accept and embrace that right now and actually fall in love with it? So it's a process. First, you accept and then you fall in love. And then
Yeah.
eventually it's going to be like a mindset of yours that you own and you create, and you can go back to again and again if there is a trigger that comes up. But the point of us accepting what we are today is not so we can we can give ourselves false hopes or false dreams, or to say that, there's something that is, I'm an angry person, I get angry all the time, but I accept myself that way. I don't mean it that way at all. There are things that we'd like to do, to change in a better way, to improve in a more conscious way, and to live in a more conscious way. So I'm not saying accept all of your flaws and all of the things that you may think that you have no accountability over, how people feel about you or how you make other people feel when you speak to them. But if you're able to accept the things that you cannot change and they're not something that you've created, that the world has given you. For example, you're supposed to look this way. So, in your mind, if you don't look the way that you're supposed to look, you're not beautiful. So, I feel that a lot of this baggage comes from the world that we accept. And then a lot of it comes from trauma that you don't have to accept, that you can heal from and work on and create this new identity for yourself. So always look for that ideal image in your mind. What does that girl look like? What does that guy look like? What do they speak like? How do they walk? How do they behave? How do they treat other people? And if you are hitting all of those notes for yourself, then you are going to one day accept yourself as a work in progress, but also I love myself as I am today.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, definitely a journey. And the funny thing, as you say, right? You go through circles in life, and then you say, "Oh, here we are again." That old belief or this old image, old self image, come up again. Uh, Tell me, you mentioned to me earlier, we were talking about your own healing journey. I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Yes, for me, it was a very sudden realization that I wanted to do something about the way I was feeling. I was feeling disempowered for sure, but I really was just I this is the thing. I know, and I did it too, and I know people do this. They wait until things are really bad. We all do it. I did it too. So I'm not going to lie and say, "Oh no, I did it too." I waited until things were so bad and I was just on my knees with everything that I was feeling. That's when I said, "Oh, I got to get help." So It's it's completely understandable if there are people out there who fear getting help or who deny getting help because it's just not what they do. I did that, and I started off with just feeling absolutely miserable about everything in my life. And so I got help. And the way my healing journey started was pretty rough. I had to go through a lot of the traumas that I had and the mindsets that I had adopted, and I had to go through them. It was a painful journey where I had to go through each of them and understand. I did a lot of blaming as well. I played victim, and just felt like, why has this happened to me of all people? So I did go through all of that as well. It wasn't just me realizing that I heal this and I'll be great. There's a lot of forgiving that that I went through, a lot of it that's still pending as well. And this is the thing, when you forgive, it's not for anyone but yourself. We know that. But it's so hard to forgive, especially when you were not in control and someone else was for your circumstances or for your trauma. It's a difficult journey to let go of that anger and that feeling of victimhood. But if you don't go through it, then the only person that suffers is the person in the mirror. And I realized that. So it was a painful journey of going through all of that trauma and slowly realizing that this was really in my hands. How I feel was going to be in my power. And so to embrace that power took time,
Mhm.
and it's still taking some time. There are a couple of things that I'm still working on. So maybe it's not something that you want to think that you can give yourself a month to heal from or a day to heal from. I would consider this the so for example, let's just say you have a mirror in front of you and there's all this dirt and all this muck on it, and it's you cannot see your face anymore. And this process is of removing that muck bit by bit. You're not going to be able to remove it, all of it, in one day. You're going to have to take some time and remove it bit by bit. Take some rest. You're going to get overwhelmed. But once that muck is removed, what you see in the mirror is going to be your true self, your ideal self, your higher self, whichever you want to choose. So for me, that's my journey, is to heal and to remove all of that muck so that I can see the true incredible soul that's going to shine right back and look at me and say, we're perfect. We're perfect the way we are. And we are incredible the way we are. And that's the journey of reaching that soul that's pure, that's beautiful, and that isn't made up of all of these thought processes and mindsets and just feelings of what the world gives you because of what you've gone through. Everything that you believe is because of what you've gone through. It's all proof that forms all of these mindsets. You think that you are a great writer because you wrote something and people said it was great, so you're a great writer. Each job that we do, we get feedback for it, so we think we're good at it. There's a lot of validation that comes from the world that is great. It's an indicator of where you're at, but you don't need it.
I think it's what you're saying is really important because there's a few things here, right? First of
Yeah.
all, comes the stage where you have to recognize that where you are at the moment is actually not where you want to be, and
Yes.
then you need to recognize that maybe there is a way for you to get somewhere else. And then the next bit is actually believing that you can. And so that is the process and the journey, right? Because we keep having all of these conversations, all of the conditioning, all of these you can't, and be careful, and you shouldn't be doing that all the time with every step of the way. So I totally get what you're saying, and I think it's really important for people to know that they don't have to stay where they are at. There's always another way. There's always, something. If you only just change one little thing, you're going to get new results. So let's get started. There is something else out there for us. So I think it's incredible for me to hear a little bit about your journey, and that everything that you've done to move away from feeling like, you didn't like where you were, and now, you took it in your stride. You are doing this, even if you not go to the end. We never get to the end, I don't think, but it is about the doing and the persisting, and persevering with stuff.
Yeah, I think once you dive into this, you will realize that there is no real end per se. But I did realize one thing that and this comes from my faith, from my religion, from Hinduism, is the fact that I think every soul is looking to be clean and pure. And by clean, I mean just rid of all of these false beliefs that we have that we're not good enough, because we are. We are made in the likeness of the Almighty. Every
Mhm.
single religion says that. There must be a reason for that. So I believe that the point here is to come here and go through all of this just so that we can clear that path to salvation, for that soul to realize how worthy it is.
Yeah.
So I think that's my journey, is to realize how incredibly worthy I am. And as much as I feel today that I am worthy of everything, and as much as I am empowered today, I know there's work to do still.
Yeah. And so, just before we finish, what is one, two, three tips that you have for people listening on, how to look at their journey, or what something that they can think about as they're going through their own journey?
My first tip is that if you haven't gotten help and you don't feel great about yourself, it's okay. It's okay. You will be ready when you're ready.
Hmm.
So don't be pressured. But if you're not getting help because you feel that resistance really strongly, start taking baby steps. Call someone and get a conversation started. Maybe they'll be able to just guide you towards something that you don't have to fully commit to. So, for us to feel that we don't need any help and we got this is such a false notion. So, my biggest tip here would be, it's a false notion that you can walk by yourself. We
Hmm.
all need help. So, get the help. And if it's of no use, move on. It's okay. But at least you got the help,
Yeah.
rather than not getting the help and struggle on your own. That would be my number one tip. Don't do this by yourself. I did it for years by myself, and I now don't do it by myself. And I know what a huge difference it makes for me. So that's my number one tip. Number two is that please learn to forgive yourself.
Yeah.
If you do falter, forgive yourself. Have the grace you have for other people. Please, for God's sake, have it for yourself. Because we're taught to be kind and amazing to other people. Please be kind to you.
I like that. I like that very much. Thank you, Nimisha, so much for being here with us today and sharing some of your journey and a lot of your wisdom. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ainav. I'm so, so grateful to be here and share this beautiful vibration with you. And I'm grateful that you called me on here to share whatever it is with I have to share with the people that are closest to you. So thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I really believe that every person that comes in, the message, there's people out there looking to hear it. And so, a message for the listener or the watchers. Let us know if you're watching the live, if you're watching the replay, if you have any comments and questions. I'm going to upload this question, not question, the the podcast, of course, is going in the Facebook group, and then of course it's going to go into the YouTube. So all of your contact information is going to be there, so people can get in touch if they have any questions. Welcome to ask. Yeah, but thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Thanks.